I'm Roger Sherman. I'm a member of the advisory board here. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I had the privilege of doing a little tiny help on this film. Got to see a rough cut, and we talked a lot afterwards about many, many different things. So I know you first as an editor, and then you've been producing. How many films have you produced? What's your journey to that?
To editing? I mean,
No,
to producing?
to producing.
You know, I've lost track because I worked my way up as a producer, then I became an editor, and editing was really good when I was having kids because I didn't have to travel. And so I ended up going back to producing, but then when I started to do my own projects, I was editing them also. So I've worked on quite a lot of stuff, and I couldn't sort it out for you.
So how did this come about? Not your average, everyday project.
Yeah. I worked in television documentary for about 3 decades, and got to work on a lot of really great projects. But increasingly felt like there were stories that weren't being told, voices we weren't hearing from. And so in 2011, I decided to unpack my story folder, which I'm sure all indie filmmakers have, and see what was interesting. And there was a story about sort of a self-help mental health group. And they're talking about coping mechanisms. These are people with, schizophrenia and bipolar. And one person was saying, I don't know what to do when I need to yell back at my voices. And somebody else in the group said, well, what I do is I just take out my cell phone and I yell on my cell phone because no one pays any attention to somebody yelling on their cell phone. And it was a real eye-opener for me. It just disrupted all my cliched ideas about people with severe mental illness, and I decided to investigate what else they had to say about what it was like to be them.
And you're in New York City. This is in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
It's really hard.
It looks like you moved out there.
Yeah.
Did you have somebody on the ground
I
shooting
did.
all the time and directing by phone or Skype? Or
I did all of that, actually. It felt incredibly piecemeal, but it actually worked better than I could have ever dreamed. The first shoots, I identified Rick and Eric as people I wanted to work with, and when we decided we were going to work together, I got this call, well, Eric's going to be released. I couldn't get there. I was in the middle of a job for National Geographic, so I went on the D-word, looked for somebody who was a shooter that could cover the shoot for me, and talked to this guy, liked him a lot. He ended up doing a bunch of the work for me when I couldn't be there. That's Randy Lee. He's a field producer and shooter. He did some great work. And then Brian and I went out like the next minute we could. And so that's how we did it. We kind of covered it back and forth. We were able to do a lot of work, actually, on Skype. And, but also the other thing was the story points were pretty evident to me. So although we often didn't get much notice, I sort of was able to figure out, okay, we need to be here then. Yeah. But it was a challenge. I don't know if I'll do it again. That was crazy.
So what was the time frame? You had lots of dates, but I kind of lost track.
This story started in the spring of 2011. We told some of the backstory, which happened before that, and then we shot into the spring of 2012, and then we were asked not to shoot for a while because Eric wasn't doing very well then. And we needed to raise money and figure out our narrative anyway. And then I went back in 2014.
Was that okay to you not to shoot for a while? As a documentary filmmaker, we think that the best time is the crisis. That's where the drama is. You don't want to have a straight line film.
Yeah.
But there was nothing you could do about it.
There was nothing I could do about it. The other thing was, I was under scrutiny from the beginning from people like in the county, Dane County, as to whether the shooting was contributing to Eric's illness. And so that was an issue. But when Eric's dad called me and said, we need to stop now, it seemed the right thing to do. The other thing about it was I was upset because I didn't want to spend like 5 years making the film, which I did end up doing. But the benefit of having done that was that I got a completely different story arc. I got to see Eric basically go into recovery, and that was not happening in 2012 at all. So,
How did you fund it?
how did I fund it? It was basically crowdfunded. I did get some in-kind grants from various foundations, but it was mostly crowdfunded.
I thought that your B-roll, the background shooting as we call it, and the evocative shooting was very, very interesting. And there's a lot of it. There's a lot of moving across a landscape of nighttime going in front of the Mendota. Did you ever get arrested for that? Did they send you that?
They did grab a camera card once, but other than that, we did not get arrested. No.
That's a very hard decision as a director to make. You never have enough material in the edit room. Your editor, in this case, you're firing yourself 12 times a day, is saying, well, don't you have this? Why didn't you get this? And of course, it makes you feel terrible that you didn't shoot every possible thing. So that's got to be stressful too. What else can we do here to put in, because we can't just have the talking head the whole time, and there's a lot of talking head, which is very successful.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and I struggled with it. And actually, as I was watching the film this time, I was thinking how much necessity is the mother of invention. Like, how did I, some things that feel very natural to watch now, I had no clue how I was going to cover those things. And it was by sort of scrubbing the footage and looking for the right resonance between what I thought it felt like and what I wanted to communicate. And having been an editor for so many years, I know there's nothing more disappointing than looking in a bin when you don't have what you need. So I didn't want to go there. But I also should say that my co-conspirator on this project is Tony Brewer, who's right up here, a very, very fine editor who did a lot of editing on this project. And where I failed, Tony didn't.
It's good to have a team. It's a very collaborative medium, which is very, very necessary.
Yes, totally necessary.
Do we have some questions? Yes, sir.
I'm very curious about the idea of what did Eric think upon looking at the completed project of his life. The reason why I ask is a lifetime ago I was a psychologist with the Veterans Administration, and in 1972 we used very primitive videotape for feedback. The patient actually observed, in those days, a black and white image of himself, and it confronted his pathology directly as an object.
Interesting.
I'm just curious, just for my own...
Yeah, what did Eric think?
So Eric hasn't watched the completed film, and 2 years ago, I guess when I recut the trailer, I said, do you want to watch it? He said no, because he said it's a very hard time in his life and he didn't want to revisit it. I should tell you that Eric has a job now and he's married, and so he's moved into a really different place in his life. So he didn't want to go back. But then he did watch the trailer and he called me back and he said, it's great. I think for him, the important thing was I representing him the way he saw himself? And his whole thing was about choice, and that was the question that really interested me. So I think he felt well represented. I was relieved that he felt that way.
Has the treatment facility people, have the Mendota people seen it? Have you gotten any reaction from the people that wanted him committed all those times?
There's a couple people that are in the film that have seen it that really I got a very positive reaction from. And for me, that's actually the best litmus test if I've done a good job, especially in a film like this, which is very tricky. If those people feel good about it, then I feel like I've done my job correctly. But I've been circling Wisconsin, to be honest with you. I haven't applied to any film festivals there, but I am talking to people there. We will show there, and I will find out, I guess, what they think.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I found the soundtrack to be wonderful. I was wondering, especially in the beginning, it almost had a hospital ring to it. Was that originally composed?
The music you're talking about.
Yes, the music was composed.
And sound design, we call it. It's the whole thing.
We would have loved to have had some sound design. That wasn't really in our budget, but we would have loved to have had some sound design. That wasn't really in our budget. But I used scratch tracks. I just chose music that felt right to me. Then I worked with a composer who I really love, and I think he did an amazing job. Thank you. I will let him know. Yeah.
Good. Yes, in the middle there.
I'm amazed to hear that you say that this, I thought that you were going to have a more personal connection with this particular family because it felt so intimate and personal and that sort of a thing, and also that you found, so it's amazing to me that you found someone who had already started shooting himself.
Yes, that's true. Eric had shot all those home videos, which you see in the beginning.
Was that a criteria?
Not at all. Just pure damn luck.
Wow.
Pure damn
But
luck.
if he hadn't, you might have looked further.
I might have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Another question? So how are you distributing it? What's your
Right now I'm
plan?
self-distributing.
That's most of what our conversations have been.
Right now I'm self-distributing. You can get the video, the film on the website, which is www.crazythefilm.com. We have an international distributor outside the U.S., and I may get tired of going to the post office. But right now I'm enjoying having a connection with people who are interested in the film. I'm trying to do a lot of community screenings with stakeholders, so that would be people in recovery, parents, treaters, law enforcement, people who are in universities, medical schools, all the people that deal with this. So because I made the film to start a conversation, and that's where the conversation's going to happen.
Great. Congratulations.
Thanks a
Thank
lot,
you.
Roger.
Thanks for coming. Thank you all.